In Ecuador, the National Electoral Council carried out this Sunday a simulation of the second round of the general elections to be held on April 13th. In the United States, citizens protested in several cities across the country against the Trump administration's economic, social, and immigration policies. And the United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestinian refugees reported that approximately 1.9 million people in the Gaza Strip have been subjected to repeated forced displacement. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Ecuador, the National Electoral Council carries out a simulation of the second round of the elections on this Sunday. During the process, the National Electoral Council will test the scrutiny procedure and will be able to determine the time it will take to record the votes in the second round, as well as to determine the time at which the entry of the scrutiny data will begin. At present, the distribution of the electoral packages with the documents and materials to be used in the second round of voting on Sunday, April 13th, has already concluded in 14 provinces and in the 3 districts abroad. More than 13.7 million Ecuadorians are summoned to the polls this Sunday to elect their president for the 2025-2029 term. Also in Ecuador, presidential candidate for the Citizens Revolution Party, Luisa Gonzalez, advocates for the right to education, health, and social justice as part of her speech. In her presentation in Esmeraldas, Luisa Gonzalez unveiled the model of a new university campus with student residence and sports areas so that more young people will be able to access quality higher education. The candidate for the Citizens Revolution Party assured that she is where she is thanks to public education, scholarships, and educational credits. In a massive evening rally, Gonzalez also acknowledged the daily pain of Ecuadorians due to the risk of wandering the streets of the country and announced that insecurity has become normalized. In other news, in Ecuador, the Citizens Revolution Party demanded the government provide proof that the Sasha oil field concessions was revoked. The leftist party demanded the Ministry of Energy to send to the Parliament and to the Commission of Radicalization the official documentation that certifies the effective repeal of the resolution that adjudicates the Sasha field. In this sense, they denounced that the document has not been formally eliminated by the ministry. Citizens carried out multiple demonstrations in rejection of the projects on the Sasha field promoted by the Ecuadorian government to hand over the management of the oil enclave to the Chinese-Canadian consortium Sinopetrol. And this Sunday marks the first anniversary of the raid on the Mexican embassy in Quito by Ecuadorian special forces to kidnap former Vice President Jorge Glass. The act, ordered by the government of Daniel Noboa, was a violation of international diplomacy. Ecuadorian forces broke into the premises, violating Mexican diplomatic personnel and abducting former Vice President Jorge Glass, who had requested political asylum. This event caused a rupture between Mexico City and Quito and provoked the general rejection of the Noboa-led executive. Mexico and Ecuador are currently facing each other before the International Court of Justice for this case, and next April 22nd, both parties are due to deliver their initial reports. And in Argentina, the General Labor Confederation mobilizes on Wednesday to Congress in support of retirees' claims and on Thursday's national strike. On April 9th, from noon onwards, the General Labor Confederation, together with social, human rights, and political organizations, will start to gather to accompany the protest that retirees carried out every Wednesday. An impressive mobilization is foreseen that will stop the activity in a large part of the country and that will become the prologue of the general strike that will take place from the first minute of Thursday, April 10th. The retirees have consistently remained protesting every Wednesday against the adjustment policies of Javier Milei's government, even in spite of the continuous repression by the Minister of Security, Patricia Bullrich. A former New York prosecutor prepares criminal complaint against Argentine President Javier Milei over the Libra case. The former federal prosecutor before the New York court specialized in fraudulent acts, Timothy Traynor, prepares a complaint that reaches the Argentine president. Milei could be indicted in the United States for violation of the Foreign Racketeering Prevention Act, a federal crime. The complaint will be the second on U.S. soil for the scam perpetrated last February 14th after Burwick lawsuit. The difference between the two is that Traynor is preparing a criminal complaint and he places the president at the center of the scam, while Burwick Laws is a civil one and only mentions Milei as a meme coin promoter. Venezuela received a batch of 30,000 doses of polio vaccine from Cuba. According to the Minister for Health, Magali Gutierrez, the shots are intended for newborns and children under 5 years of age in order to continue strengthening the expanded program of immunization. She pointed out that in spite of the economic blockade the country is facing, the government continues to ensure the necessary doses to protect the health of children. The shipment arrived at the Arturo Michelena International Airport, Carabobo State. We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English. We'll be right back. Welcome back. In the United States, massive protests took place in all 50 states against Trump's policies, including his handling of Social Security benefits, layoffs across the federal workforce, attacks on consumer protections, denigrating anti-immigrant policies, and recent tariffs imposed by the government on a long list of countries around the world. Let's see more details in the Fairwind project.
In Florida, hundreds of citizens rallied at Palm Beach Garden near Trump's golf course, shouting slogans against the president and his policies. Likewise, in Georgia, hundreds of people protested in places such as Woodstock and Piedmont Park, where participants raised their demands for protection of healthcare, social security, civil rights, and education to the state capitol building. In Kansas, protesters held a rally at the Country Club Plaza as part of nationwide demonstrations, marking the second consecutive weekend of local protests against the Trump administration. In this regard, in Massachusetts, thousands rallied on Boston Common with signs reading "Hands off our democracy, hands off our social security and diversity." Likewise, in Minnesota, multiple citizens gathered at the local capitol in agreement with the anti-Trump forces that gathered in various parts of the country. Those attended the demonstration noted that it was one of the largest rallies in the state in recent memory. In New York, thousands of people marched through downtown Manhattan against the Trump administration, mobilized with Palestinian and LGBTI flags, and signs with phrases like "Take your hands off our jobs," directed especially against the president and tycoon Elon Musk, who was one of the main actors in the neoliberal policies of the U.S. government. On the other hand, in the state of Rhode Island, the demonstration that took place in Providence began its route at Hope High School and headed to Kennedy Square. This demonstration was part of a nationwide movement called Hands Off. In this context, hundreds of people gathered at City Hall in Houston, Texas, in rejection of Trump's and billionaire Elon Musk measures on government downsizing, the economy, immigration, and human rights. Finally, in the capital, Washington, D.C., more than 150 groups, including civil rights organizations, labor unions, LGBTQ+ advocates, veterans, and election activists, gathered near the Capitol and the White House. Many of the attendees were federal employees recently laid off because of Musk's plans.
And Italian citizens took to the streets in rejection of the European Union's rearmament plan to increase military spending in member states. Italian people have rejected the arms race of the EU and NATO. Demonstrators demanded to invest in life and not in death, since the struggle for peace is intensifying in Germany, France, and Spain. Protesters carried banners with pacifist and anti-imperialist slogans in a forceful message against the escalation of war in Europe. Social collectives, trade unions, and left-wing parties denounced that the increase of the military budget only benefits the armament industry, while social rights are being cut.
No al riarmo perché noi non abbiamo bisogno di eserciti.
No to rearmament because we don't need armies. We already have many armies that need to work, not fight wars. Therefore, rearmament only serves to create wars. As a result, we reject this logic, which is harmful to society as a whole.
There are many other things to do, investments that are not being made in many places, not only in Italy but also across Europe. Therefore, investing in weapons, since we already have enough, is really not the right approach. We are just small drops, but who knows, maybe one day we will succeed.
And in Canada, police evacuated the Ottawa Parliament on Saturday after an unidentified man barricaded himself in a wing of the building. Through a press release, local authorities warned that there is a strong police presence in the area, although it is still unknown if the individuals were armed. The statement also reported that no injuries have been reported and that police continue to deal with the individual in this incident, which began shortly before 3 p.m. local time. Investigators said the man gained unauthorized access to the East Block of Canada's Parliament on Saturday afternoon and barricaded himself inside the building amid the preparations for upcoming elections next April 28th. We now have our second and final short break coming up. Remember, you can also visit us on our Facebook page at teleSUR English. I'm going to be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees reported that approximately 1.9 million people in the Gaza Strip have been subjected to repeated forced displacement. In a statement shared on X, the agency reported that the collapse of the ceasefire in Gaza has triggered another wave of displacement, affecting more than 142,000 people. The agency also reports that over 55,000 people have been killed on the Strip. UNRWA urged Israel to lift the over a month-long siege to allow an unimpeded flow of humanitarian aid and commercial supplies and to renew the ceasefire. Also in Palestine, almost 300,000 people have been displaced since Israel broke the ceasefire. Israeli forces have intensified bombing from the air, land and sea throughout the Gaza Strip and expanded ground operations, resulting in the destruction of civilian infrastructure and large-scale displacement. The Gaza Ministry of Health reported on April 4th that Israeli forces have killed 1,249 people and injured 3,022 since Israel resumed its war on Gaza on March 18th. More than 280,000 people are estimated to have been displaced in the past 2 weeks, including about 100,000 people from Rafah in the past few days, according to the site management group.
There is no place. We hardly found this place, and it is dangerous for us here. We are near the destroyed buildings, and we are afraid that stones will fall on our children and they will be injured. There is no room for us.
In Palestine as well, the Gaza Health Ministry reported that in the last 24 hours, new Israeli attacks left 60 dead and 162 wounded. The organization pointed out that since the resumption of the Zionist occupation attacks, the number of people killed has risen to 50,669 and the number of wounded to 115,225 since October 7, 2023. Between January 19th and March 1st, A ceasefire took place in Gaza within the framework of the agreements with Israel and Palestine, which consisted in the exchange of Palestinian prisoners for Israeli hostages. However, Israel resumed its attacks on Gaza last March 18th, blocked the power supply to the desalination plant in Gaza, and closed the access to the entry of humanitarian aid trucks to the enclave in flagrant violation of the agreements with the resistance movement Hamas. In this context, U.S. aggressions against Yemen continues in an attempt to dissuade the country from supporting Palestine. 4 U.S. attacks targeted the area of Hafsin, west of the city of Sada, resulting in the death of 1 citizen and 4 wounded, according to an initial assessment by Yemeni authorities. It should be noted that the U.S. aggression targeted a store selling solar energy and an adjacent house. In this sentence, the U.S. continues its aggressions in a desperate attempt to stop aid to Gaza, while Yemeni armed forces continue attacking Israeli targets in occupied Palestine, as well as the U.S. aircraft carrier Truman and enemy warships in the Red Sea. And on Saturday in Israel, thousands of demonstrators gathered in the streets of Tel Aviv to carry out a weekly demonstration where they demand to the Benjamin Netanyahu's regime an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the release of all Israeli hostages. Demonstrators demanded the release of the remaining 59 hostages. In this context, the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas has reiterated its position to release the Israeli hostages on condition that Netanyahu orders a withdrawal of Israeli forces from the enclave and the release of Palestinian prisoners. The situation in the region remains complex, and demands of the demonstrators reflect the urgency of finding a solution that guarantees security and rights. Meanwhile, in Sudan, paramilitaries reportedly killed more than 100 civilians in 2 weeks. The Emergency Lawyers Association accused the paramilitary group Rapid Support Forces of committing widespread violations against the enclave citizens. The human rights organization disclosed in a statement that the clashes that took place in that area from March 20th to April 2nd ended the lives of 100 civilians, some of whom were executed by the paramilitary. The commission indicated that the paramilitary group attacked and assaulted homes, killing those inside them in a flagrant violation of human rights and international law. In Myanmar, authorities reported that the death toll after the 7.9 magnitude earthquake that shook the country on March 28th rose to 3,445. Authorities informed that during the removal of debris and the search for the missing, 4,850 people were injured and 221 missing persons were reported. The civil defense teams declared a state of emergency in the affected regions, in addition to requesting international aid. In this context, the earthquake affected some 17 million people, including 9 million victims near the epicenter of the catastrophe, and also spread to neighboring countries, leaving 29 dead, 9 injured, and 59 missing in Thailand. In the United States, at least 16 people have been killed by severe storms and tornadoes. The highest death toll has been reported in Tennessee, where 10 people have died since Wednesday, including a man and his 16-year-old daughter, after a tornado destroyed their home. Meanwhile, in Kentucky, 2 people have been killed by flooding: a 9-year-old boy who was swept away by the water and a 74-year-old man who was trapped with his vehicle. The United States National Weather Service issued Friday a high risk of heavy rainfall over parts of Mississippi, Ohio, and Tennessee that will be active through Sunday morning. In Brazil, Rio de Janeiro is on alert due to heavy rains and strong winds. The rains left at least 346 people displaced in the municipality of Angra do Reis on the southern coast of Rio de Janeiro. The National Institute of Meteorology issued a severe weather alert for several regions of Brazil this Saturday after the volume of rainfall reached 324 millimeters. Residents are advised to take precautions against flooding and power outages as neighborhood streets begin to flood and river beaches are deserted. Between Friday and Saturday, the storm caused landslides, floods, and river overflows, and damages were observed in several points of the municipality. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thanks for watching.